December 1944, eastern France, near the German border. A Tiger I commander named Hauptmann Klaus Brenner watched through his periscope as his tank's frontal armor, 100 millimeters of face-hardened steel that had deflected every American shell for 18 months, suddenly erupted, inward. The penetration came from a distance Brenner had calculated to be impossible, over 2,000 yards. The attacking vehicle wasn't even a proper tank. It was an M18 Hellcat tank destroyer, a vehicle so lightly armored that German training manuals classified it as not survivable under direct fire. Yet somehow, impossibly, this stripped-down American hot rod had just punched through the most feared armor on the Western Front from a range where Tigers were supposed to reign supreme. What Brenner didn't know, what no German tanker could have known, was that American metallurgy had quietly solved a problem that would render German tactical doctrine obsolete. The story of how that single penetration shattered German armored confidence reveals not just a technical breakthrough, but a fundamental shift in how armored warfare would be fought for the remainder of the war. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. By November 1944, German tank commanders on the Western Front operated under tactical assumptions that had been proven through 3 years of brutal combat. These weren't theories. They were laws of armored warfare, written in the destroyed hulks of hundreds of Allied tanks from North Africa to Normandy. The first law, German armor superiority, was absolute at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters. The second law, American tank destroyers, while fast, possessed inadequate armor and guns that could penetrate Tiger frontal armor only under perfect conditions at close range, generally under 800 yards, and only against specific weak points. The third law, any engagement at extended range favored German heavy tanks decisively. These weren't propaganda claims. They were battlefield realities documented in after-action reports, kill ratios, and the desperate tactical adjustments Allied forces had made throughout 1943 and early 1944. Hauptmann Klaus Brenner commanded Tiger 214 of the 2nd Company, Heavy Panzer Battalion 506. At 34 years old, Brenner had survived the Eastern Front from 1941 through early 1943 before transferring west. He'd commanded Panzer IVs during the initial invasion of the Soviet Union, survived the brutal winter of 1941–42 outside Moscow, and participated in the desperate mobile defense of Ukraine in 1943. His Tiger assignment came in April 1943, just after the battalion reformed in France following catastrophic losses in Tunisia. Brenner received his Tiger in May 1943 and had commanded the same vehicle, Tiger 214, through Normandy, the fighting withdrawal across France, and now the defense of the German frontier itself. By December 1944, Brenner had survived 17 months in continuous combat in the most visible, most targeted vehicle on any battlefield. That survival wasn't luck. It was the product of systematic doctrine, crew discipline, and the Tiger's genuine technical advantages. Brenner's gunner, Feldwebel Otto Zimmer, had been with him since the Tiger assignment. Zimmer had fired the 88mm gun in combat 114 times. He kept count in a small notebook and scored 67 confirmed kills against Allied tanks. Another 23 probable kills couldn't be confirmed due to battlefield conditions. Zimmer understood the 88mm KUK-36 gun intimately. He knew its ballistics, its penetration capabilities at every range, and the precise aim points for every Allied tank type. Most importantly, he knew the ranges at which return fire became dangerous. Against American M4 Sherman medium tanks mounting the standard 75mm gun, the safety range was approximately 1,800 meters. Beyond that distance, Sherman rounds either fell short or, if they reached the Tiger, simply bounced off the frontal armor without penetrating. Against the Sherman 76mm, the upgraded American medium tank with a higher velocity gun, the safety range decreased to approximately 1,200 meters frontally. The 76mm gun could theoretically penetrate Tiger frontal armor at closer ranges, but required nearly perfect 90-degree impact angles. In practice, Tigers could engage Sherman 76mm tanks from 1,500 meters with virtual impunity. Against the American M10 tank destroyer, mounting a 3-inch gun similar in performance to the 76mm, the safety ranges were comparable around 1,200 to 1,500 meters, depending on impact angle. But there was a new threat that had begun appearing in August and September 1944, the M18 Hellcat. Intelligence summaries described the M18 as extremely dangerous due to its exceptional speed up to 55 miles per hour on roads, making it the fastest tracked armored vehicle in the war. But those same intelligence summaries emphasized the Hellcat's critical vulnerability: armor, thickness of only 1 inch on the turret front and less on the hull. The tactical assessment was clear. The M18 could be destroyed by any German tank gun or anti-tank weapon. It was classified as a hit-and-run vehicle that depended entirely on mobility and ambush tactics. In direct combat against heavy German armor, the M18 was not expected to survive. The gun performance data supported this assessment. The M18 mounted a 76mm M1A1 gun, basically the same weapon as the Sherman 76mm with similar ammunition. German intelligence estimated that this gun could penetrate Tiger frontal armor only at ranges under 800 yards, and only with precise shot placement against turret front or hull corners. The doctrine was clear: maintain engagement ranges above 1,200 meters. Use the 88mm gun's superior reach to destroy American tank destroyers before they could close to effective range. If an M18 attempted to use its speed to close distance, the Tiger's superior armor would protect the crew during the approach, allowing the gunner time for a deliberate aimed shot. This doctrine had worked throughout the fall of 1944. Brenner's crew had engaged and destroyed 2 M18s in September during the fighting near the Moselle River. Both engagements followed the expected pattern. The Hellcats appeared at range, attempted to maneuver for flank shots, and were destroyed before reaching positions where their 76mm guns could threaten the Tiger effectively. The first M18 died at 1,400 meters, hit in the hull by an 88mm round that penetrated completely and detonated the ammunition storage. The vehicle exploded instantly. The second M18 lasted longer, using terrain skillfully to approach within 900 meters before exposing itself for a shot. Zimmer destroyed it with a single round through the thin turret armor. The crew bailed out. 3 survived. Both engagements reinforced Brenner's confidence in German doctrine. The M18 was fast, but speed without armor was suicide against German guns. The 76mm weapon was inadequate against Tiger frontal armor at any range where the M18 could survive return fire. By early December 1944, Heavy Panzer Battalion 506 had been pulled from the line for maintenance and preparation for the upcoming Ardennes offensive, what would later be known as the Battle of the Bulge. The battalion occupied positions in the West Wall fortifications east of the German-French border, conducting training and mechanical maintenance. Brenner's crew used the brief respite to perform extensive maintenance on Tiger 214. The Maybach HL 230 engine received new spark plugs, fresh oil, and a complete inspection. The transmission, always the Tiger's mechanical weak point, was serviced and adjusted. The crew cleaned and inspected the 88mm gun, checked the optical sights, and conducted bore measurements to assess barrel wear. After 17 months of combat, the gun showed measurable wear but remained within acceptable tolerances. Conducted test fires at the company training range, confirming that accuracy remained excellent out to 2,000 meters. During the training exercises in early December, Brenner's company conducted tactical scenarios, simulating the expected conditions for the Ardennes offensive. The exercises emphasized long-range engagement, fire discipline, and ammunition conservation. One scenario specifically addressed the M18 threat. The exercise positioned a captured American vehicle, an M10 tank destroyer, serving as proxy for the unavailable M18 at various ranges, while Tiger crews practiced engagement priorities and firing solutions. The conclusion from the training exercise matched existing doctrine. Engage fast-moving American tank destroyers at maximum practical range, 1,500 to 2,000 meters. Do not allow them to close distance. Their speed makes them dangerous if they reach close range, but their armor makes them vulnerable to the 88mm gun at any distance. Brenner felt confident in his crew's ability to handle any American armor, including the M18. The Tiger's advantages were overwhelming at range. The 88mm gun could penetrate any Allied tank from the front at 2,000 meters. The Tiger's frontal armor was effectively immune to American guns at those ranges. Simple geometry and metallurgy created an engagement envelope where German heavy tanks held absolute superiority. This wasn't arrogance. It was mathematical reality, validated by hundreds of combat engagements across multiple theaters. The metallurgical revolution nobody discussed. What Klaus Brenner didn't know what German intelligence had failed to detect was that American ammunition technology had undergone a revolutionary change in the summer and fall of 1996. The problem American ordnance engineers faced was straightforward. German armor, particularly on the Tiger and the newer Panther tanks, used face-hardened steel that was extremely resistant to penetration. American armor-piercing shells, designated M79 AP, used conventional hardening techniques that worked adequately against medium armor but shattered against the hardened face of German heavy tank armor. When an M79 AP round struck Tiger frontal armor at high velocity, the shell itself often broke apart on impact, dissipating energy without penetrating. This was called shattering, and it represented a fundamental failure of the projectile rather than insufficient kinetic energy. The solution came from metallurgical research at the Army's Watertown Arsenal in Massachusetts. Engineers developed a new armor-piercing round, designated M93 HVAP high-velocity armor-piercing. The M93 used a tungsten carbide core rather than hardened steel. Tungsten carbide, being both denser and harder than steel, maintained integrity on impact even against face-hardened armor. The tungsten core didn't shatter, it punched through. The M93 also used a different ballistic design. The tungsten core was smaller in diameter than the shell body and was wrapped in a lightweight aluminum sabot, a carrier that fell away after the round left the barrel. This reduced the projectile's air resistance and increased velocity significantly. The result was dramatic. The M93 HVAP round achieved muzzle velocities of 3,400 feet per second from the 76mm M1A1 gun, nearly 600 feet per second faster than the standard M79 AP round. The combination of higher velocity and the tungsten carbide core increased penetration capability by approximately 50% at all ranges. Field testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland during June 1944 demonstrated that M93 HVAP could penetrate the Tiger's frontal armor at ranges exceeding 1,500 yards under correct impact conditions. At 1,000 yards, penetration was almost certain. Even at 2,000 yards, penetration was possible against the Tiger's turret front or hull corners, where armor thickness was slightly reduced. The problem was supply. Tungsten was a strategic material needed for cutting tools, machine tooling, and other critical manufacturing purposes. Production capacity for tungsten carbide rounds was limited. Each HVAP round required materials that could produce 50 conventional armor-piercing shells. The Army made a critical decision. M93 HVAP rounds would be issued only to tank destroyer battalions, not to Sherman tank units. Tank destroyers were specifically tasked with killing enemy armor. They would receive priority for the new ammunition. Sherman tanks would continue using conventional ammunition for now. Even for tank destroyer units, HVAP ammunition was strictly rationed. Each M18 Hellcat received only 20 to 40 rounds of HVAP out of a total ammunition load of 45 main gun rounds. Crews were instructed to use HVAP only against heavy German armor, Tigers and Panthers, and only when conventional ammunition proved inadequate. The first M93 HVAP rounds reached frontline units in France in August 1944. Distribution was gradual and inconsistent. Some tank destroyer battalions received full allocations by September. Others didn't receive HVAP until October or November. Supply remained limited throughout the fall. German intelligence detected something unusual happening with American tank destroyer effectiveness in September and October 1944. After-action reports noted several incidents where American 76mm guns had achieved improbable penetrations against Panther and Tiger armor at extended ranges. An incident on September 28, 1944, near Metz, France, particularly troubled intelligence analysts. An M18 tank destroyer had destroyed a Panther tank at an estimated range of 1,800 meters with a single shot through the turret front, a penetration that should have been impossible with standard American ammunition. The investigating officer recovered shell fragments from inside the destroyed Panther and noted unusual material properties. The fragments appeared denser than normal steel and had an unusual grey-silver coloring. The report speculated about possible tungsten content, but drew no definitive conclusions. A similar incident on October 15, 1944, near Aachen, Germany, resulted in a Tiger I being penetrated through the frontal hull at an estimated 1,600 meters. Again, the investigating officer noted unusual shell fragments with atypical density and hardness. German intelligence compiled these reports into a summary assessment issued on November 12, 1944. The document acknowledged that American armor-piercing ammunition may have been improved using special hardening techniques or possibly tungsten additives. However, the assessment concluded that such improved ammunition appears in very limited quantities and does not fundamentally alter tactical engagement parameters. The assessment recommended that existing engagement doctrines remain valid, but suggested that Tiger and Panther commanders should avoid presenting stationary targets at extended range against identified tank destroyer units when possible. This recommendation reached heavy. Panzer Battalion 506 on November 20, 1944. Klaus Brenner read the intelligence summary with his company commander and other Tiger commanders during a tactical briefing. The general consensus among the Tiger commanders was that the American ammunition improvements, if real, represented a marginal threat at best. The fundamental mathematics of armor penetration hadn't changed enough to overturn 3 years of proven doctrine. Tigers should maintain existing tactical practices. Engage at maximum range, use superior firepower to destroy threats before they could close distance, and rely on armor protection during necessary exposed movements. Nobody suggested that American tank destroyers now posed a credible threat at 2,000 yards. That possibility seemed to violate every lesson learned from 3 years of armored combat. What the German assessment had missed was the extent of the metallurgical improvement. The M93 HVAP round didn't represent a marginal improvement in penetration. It represented a 50% increase in penetration capability, enough to shift the effective engagement range from Tiger invulnerability to mutually lethal. At 2,000 yards, with M93 HVAP ammunition, an M18 Hellcat could now kill a Tiger from the front. The Tiger could still kill the Hellcat easily at that range. The 88mm gun lost none of its effectiveness, but the exchange was no longer one-sided. The engagement envelope had fundamentally changed. German doctrine hadn't adjusted because German intelligence hadn't recognized the extent of the change. Klaus Brenner would learn this lesson definitively on December 18, 1944, 3 days before the Ardennes offensive began, during what should have been a routine security patrol east of the German border town of Prum. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The morning fog hadn't lifted by 0900 hours when Hauptmann Klaus Brenner received orders to conduct a reconnaissance patrol along the approach routes, southwest of Prum. Heavy Panzer Battalion 506 needed current intelligence on American positions and movements in preparation for the upcoming offensive, now just 3 days away. Brenner's Tiger 214 would lead a patrol consisting of 2 Tigers and 1 Panzer IV from the battalion support company. The mission was straightforward. Move southwest along the secondary road network, observe American dispositions, avoid decisive engagement, and return with intelligence by 1500 hours. The fog concerned Brenner. Visibility remained under 400 meters as the small column departed the assembly area at 0915 hours. Radio communication with battalion headquarters crackled with static. The company commander's final instruction came through clearly. Avoid engagement. Intelligence value only. The real fight begins in 3 days. Brenner acknowledged and led the patrol southwest on a narrow paved road that wound through dense pine forest. The second Tiger, commanded by Oberleutnant Franz Dietrich, followed at 200-meter interval. The Panzer IV trailed at the rear, providing rear security and serving as radio relay back to battalion headquarters. The fog began lifting around 1015 hours as the patrol emerged from the forest onto more open terrain, rolling hills covered with winter-dead grass and scattered tree lines. Visibility improved to approximately 1,500 meters, though patches of ground fog still lingered in low areas. Brenner halted the patrol on a ridgeline that provided good observation southwest toward the American lines, estimated to be 8 to 10 kilometers distant. He climbed partially out of the commander's cupola to scan the terrain with binoculars. The landscape appeared empty, no vehicle movement, no obvious American positions. The area seemed to be a quiet sector between active combat zones, exactly what intelligence had predicted. Zimmer, the gunner, traversed the turret slowly, scanning through the gun telescope. The loader, Gefreiter Paul Richter, stood ready at his position. The driver, Unteroffizier Hans Keller, kept the engine idling, ready to move on command. The radio operator, Obergefreiter Wilhelm Bauer, monitored battalion frequencies and maintained communication with the other patrol vehicles. At 1047 hours, Bauer reported faint radio traffic on American frequencies. The signals suggested American armor units operating somewhere to the southwest, but exact locations couldn't be determined. The transmissions were brief and professional, not the nervous chatter of inexperienced units. Brenner made a decision. The patrol would advance another 2 kilometers southwest to a prominent hill marked on his map. Conduct observation from that position for 30 minutes, then withdraw back to German lines. The mission would be completed by 1300 hours, well within the allocated time. The patrol moved forward at 1055 hours. The Tigers advanced in tactical column with 300 meters spacing. The Panzer IV remained on the previous ridgeline as an observation post and radio relay, ensuring continuous communication with battalion headquarters. The approach to the observation hill required crossing approximately 800 meters of open ground, with minimal cover, not ideal, but acceptable given the apparent absence of American forces in the immediate area. The fog had burned off almost completely. Visibility now exceeded 2,000 meters in most directions. Brenner's Tiger reached the base of the observation hill at 1,108 hours. The second Tiger, under Dietrich's command, was approximately 400 meters behind, just beginning to cross the open ground. Then Bauer's voice came sharp over the intercom. "Commander, American radio traffic." "Close. Very close. Tank destroyer frequencies." Brenner immediately halted Tiger 214 and scanned the terrain with binoculars. Tank destroyers meant either M10S or M18S, and both types posed threats if allowed to maneuver to flank positions. The terrain offered multiple concealed approach routes through tree lines and low ground. Zimmer, scan left sector, tree line at 1000, 600 meters, Brenner ordered. The gunner traversed left, searching through the telescope. Nothing visible, Herr Hauptmann. Keep searching. Bauer, triangulate those transmissions if possible. Signals suggest southwest, roughly 1,500 to 2,000 meters, but not precise, Herr Hauptmann. Brenner made a rapid tactical assessment. American tank destroyers were operating nearby, probably conducting their own reconnaissance. The prudent decision was immediate withdrawal. The mission was intelligence gathering, not engagement. 3 days before the offensive, losing Tigers in an unnecessary fight would be inexcusable. All vehicles, prepare to withdraw. Dietrich, halt your advance and prepare to contact. Zimmer's voice cut through the intercom. Tank destroyer, southwest, range 2,100, moving left to right along tree line. Brenner swung his binoculars to the indicated direction. There, a low, fast silhouette emerged briefly from trees roughly 2,100 meters distant. The profile was unmistakable. An M18 Hellcat. The American vehicle moved quickly along the tree line, then disappeared again into cover. Dietrich, contact southwest. M18 tank destroyer at 2,100 meters. Prepare to engage if he presents a clear shot. Dietrich's response came immediately. Understood. I have no visual yet. The tactical situation was dangerous but manageable. The M18 was at extreme range 2,100 meters where its 76mm gun posed minimal threat to Tiger frontal armor. If the Hellcat attempted to close distance for an effective shot, Zimmer would have ample time to destroy it. The 88mm gun could reliably penetrate the M18's thin armor at any range where the target was visible. But Brenner had learned caution through 17 months of survival. One visible M18 likely meant others nearby. Tank destroyers operated in platoons of 4 vehicles. Where was the rest of the platoon? All vehicles. Maintain observation. Watch for additional contacts. Prepare for immediate withdrawal on my command. Seconds passed. The M18 emerged again from the tree line, moving fast, probably 35 miles per hour, crossing open ground toward a small hillock about 1,900 meters from Brenner's position. The vehicle was clearly attempting to reach that hillock for a better firing position. Zimmer, track that target. Range 2,000 meters. Do not fire without my command. Target acquired, Herr Hauptmann. Tracking. Brenner watched the M18 through binoculars. The vehicle reached the hillock and stopped, hull down, with only its low turret visible above the crest. Smart positioning. The Hellcat commander knew his business. Then the M18's gun traversed directly toward Tiger 214. He's aiming at us, Herr Hauptmann, Zimmer reported, voice calm but with an edge of concern. Steady. At 2,000 meters, his gun cannot penetrate our frontal armor. If he fires, we'll see his muzzle flash and destroy him immediately. Prepare for engagement. Brenner's assessment was based on solid doctrine and experience. At 2,000 meters, the M18's 76mm gun, with standard ammunition, could not threaten Tiger frontal armor. The American commander was either desperate or inexperienced. When he fired and revealed his position definitively, Zimmer would put an 88mm round through that thin turret and end the engagement instantly. The seconds stretched out. Brenner kept his binoculars fixed on the M18's position. The American gun remained aimed directly at Tiger 214. Why wasn't he firing? Was he waiting for Brenner to present a flank while maneuvering? Commander, he's taking too long. Something's wrong. This from Bauer, the radio operator, whose instincts Brenner trusted. Maintain position. If the M18's gun fired. Brenner saw the muzzle flash clearly through his binoculars at the exact instant he felt the impact. The sensation was incomprehensible. Impossible. The round struck Tiger 214's frontal hull at the junction of the upper glacis and the lower hull, a point where armor thickness was 100mm of face-hardened steel, angled at 9 degrees from vertical. Every lesson, every combat experience, Every firing range test said that no American 76mm gun could penetrate that armor at 2,000 meters. But the round punched through. The penetration was catastrophic. The tungsten carbide core of the M93 HVAP round, traveling at over 2,800 feet per second after crossing 2,000 meters, struck the armor at a near-perfect 90-degree angle. The tungsten didn't shatter. It penetrated, creating a cone of spalling metal fragments that sprayed into the crew compartment at supersonic velocity. Keller, the driver, died instantly. A fist-sized fragment of armor struck him in the head. The radio operator, Bauer, caught multiple fragments in his chest and abdomen. He slumped forward over his equipment without a sound. Brenner felt something strike his left leg, a burning sensation that didn't register as pain immediately. His mind couldn't process what had just happened. The Tiger had been penetrated from the front at 2,000 meters by a gun that wasn't supposed to be capable of that achievement. Out! Everyone out! Now! The training took over even as his conscious mind struggled with the impossibility. Zimmer reacted instantly, abandoning his gun position and moving toward the turret hatch. Richter, the loader, was already moving. Brenner pulled himself up through the commander's cupola, his left leg suddenly screaming with pain as he put weight on it. The crew compartment was filling with acrid smoke from burning materials ignited by the white-hot fragments. Brenner could see Keller slumped in the driver's position, clearly dead. Bauer wasn't moving. Zimmer emerged from the turret hatch, dropped to the ground, and turned to help Richter. Brenner pulled himself completely out of the cupola and half fell, half jumped from the Tiger, landing hard on the frozen ground. His left leg buckled. Looking down, he saw blood soaking through his trousers from mid-thigh, a metal fragment embedded in the muscle. Herr Hauptmann. Richter grabbed Brenner's arm and helped him away from the Tiger. Zimmer was already 20 meters away, running toward cover in a depression in the ground. The 3 surviving crew members reached the depression and collapsed into it, gasping. Brenner looked back at Tiger 214. Smoke poured from the open hatches. The vehicle wasn't burning, no fire visible, but it was clearly knocked out. Keller and Bauer were still inside. Bauer might still be alive. We have to... Brenner started to rise, but Richter pulled him down. Herr Hauptmann, that position is under direct observation. The American will fire again if we expose ourselves. Brenner knew Richter was right, but leaving crew members was unthinkable. Before he could make a decision, he heard the sharp crack of an 88mm gun firing Dietrich's Tiger, engaging the M18. Through the pain and shock, Brenner forced himself to observe the tactical situation. Dietrich's Tiger was firing from approximately 500 meters behind Brenner's position. The target was the M18, still hull down on the hillock at roughly 2,000 meters from Dietrich's position. Brenner watched as Dietrich's first round impacted short, creating a fountain of dirt and frozen earth about 50 meters in front of the M18's position. Zimmer, lying next to Brenner in the depression, whispered, "He's rushing, excited. He needs to breathe and shoot properly." The observation was correct. Dietrich's gunner was firing too quickly, not allowing time for precise aim. Understandable, he'd just watched an M18 achieve an impossible penetration at extreme range. Every assumption about safe engagement distances had just been shattered. Fear was affecting performance. Dietrich's second shot struck the hillock directly below the M18's turret, creating another explosion of dirt. Close, but the M18 remained intact and hull down. Then the M18 fired again. Brenner watched in horror as the American tank destroyer's gun flashed. The round covered the 1,600 meters to Dietrich's Tiger in less than a second and struck the turret front just right of the gun mantlet. The penetration was visible even at distance, a bright flash as the round punched through, followed immediately by a larger explosion as something inside the Tiger ignited. Probably ammunition. The turret hatches blew open. Smoke and flame erupted from every opening. No one emerged from Dietrich's Tiger. The explosion had been too violent, too fast. 5 men died in perhaps 2 seconds. The M18 reversed down behind the hillock and disappeared from view entirely, pulling back into dead ground where it couldn't be targeted. Brenner lay in the frozen depression, his mind finally catching up to what had just happened. 2 Tigers destroyed in less than 3 minutes by a single M18 at ranges that German doctrine classified as Tiger invulnerability zones. Penetrations that weren't supposed to be possible had occurred twice, definitively, lethally. The Americans had changed something fundamental. The 76mm gun, the weapon that German intelligence classified as marginally effective only at close range, had just killed 2 Tigers from 2,000 and 1,600 meters respectively. Both penetrations were frontal, through armor that was supposed to be immune at those ranges. "Herr Hauptmann, we must move." Zimmer's voice brought Brenner back to immediate concerns. "That American knows exactly where we are. There may be others." Brenner tried to stand and nearly collapsed. His left leg wouldn't support weight properly. Zimmer and Richter each took one of his arms and helped him up. The Panzer IV had witnessed the entire engagement from its position on the previous ridgeline. Its commander, seeing both Tigers destroyed, had already radioed for recovery and medical support. The Panzer IV moved forward now, carefully, ready to provide suppressive fire if American forces appeared. The 3 survivors from Tiger 214 limped and stumbled the 800 meters back across open ground, expecting at any moment to draw fire from concealed American positions. None came. The M18 had withdrawn. Perhaps it was alone. Perhaps its commander recognized that staying in position after destroying 2 Tigers would draw overwhelming retaliation. Brenner and his crew reached the Panzer IV at 1,122 hours. The entire engagement from first contact to both Tigers destroyed had lasted 14 minutes. Medical evacuation arrived within 30 minutes. A battalion medical officer examined Brenner's leg wound in the back of a half-track as they moved toward the rear. The metal fragment, actually a piece of armor spalling from the penetration, had embedded itself in the muscle of his thigh, but had missed the bone and major blood vessels. The wound was serious, but not crippling. With proper treatment, he would walk normally again within weeks. "You were very lucky, Herr Hauptmann," the medical officer said while bandaging the wound. Brenner didn't feel lucky. 6 men from his platoon were dead. 2 Tigers, irreplaceable, powerful vehicles that represented the peak of German armored capability, had been destroyed by a single American tank destroyer, mounting a gun that wasn't supposed to be capable of those kills. Brenner arrived at the battalion aid station at 1,315 hours. The battalion commander, Major Erich Vollmer, was already there, having driven from headquarters as soon as the initial reports arrived. Vollmer questioned Brenner personally while the medical staff cleaned and dressed his wound properly. The major needed precise details. 2 Tigers lost meant 2 fewer vehicles for the upcoming offensive. The circumstances of their loss would determine how the battalion adjusted tactics for the attack in 3 days. Brenner provided a detailed account. The initial sighting of the M18 at 2,100 meters, the American vehicle's movement to the hull-down position at approximately 2,000 meters, the decision to hold position rather than withdraw immediately, the M18's aimed shot, and the impossible penetration, the evacuation, Dietrich's engagement attempt, and the second penetration that destroyed Dietrich's Tiger. "You're certain of the ranges?" Vollmer asked. 2,000 meters for the first penetration? "Certain, Herr Major. We had time to range find properly before the engagement. The M18 was at 2,100 meters initially, approximately 2,000 when it took position on the hillock. And you're certain it was an M18, not an M36? The M36 was a newer American tank destroyer mounting a 90mm gun, a weapon known to be capable of penetrating Tiger armor at extended ranges. But the M36 had a distinctly different profile, with a much larger turret. Absolutely certain, Herr Major. Low profile, small turret, very fast movement. Definitely an M18. I've seen both types. This was a Hellcat. Vollmer was silent, for a moment, processing the implications. Finally, he said, "The Americans have improved their ammunition. The intelligence summary from November mentioned this possibility. Tungsten cores, possibly. Significantly better penetration than standard rounds. If that's true, Herr Major, Our engagement doctrine is no longer valid. If an M18 can kill a Tiger frontally at 2,000 meters, there is no safe engagement range. We must treat every encounter with American tank destroyers as mutually lethal regardless of range. Vollmer nodded slowly. I'll communicate this to division immediately. All Tiger and Panther units must be informed before the offensive begins. But Brenner could see in Vollmer's eyes the same troubling question that occupied his own thoughts. If American tank destroyers could now kill Tigers at 2,000 meters, what happened to German tactical superiority? The entire doctrine of heavy tank employment depended on an engagement envelope where German armor could destroy Allied vehicles while remaining immune to return fire. If that envelope no longer existed, if the engagement was mutually lethal at all ranges, then the Tiger's advantages shrank dramatically. Yes, the 88mm gun could still destroy any Allied tank at long range, but now the Allies could do the same. The psychological advantage, the confidence of German crews that they could engage and destroy threats before being threatened themselves, had evaporated in 2 penetrations across frozen French farmland. Brenner's experience was not isolated. Throughout December 1944, similar incidents occurred across the Western Front as American units increasingly used M93 HVAP ammunition against German heavy armor. On December 16th, 2 days before Brenner's encounter, an M18 from the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion destroyed a Panther at 1,800 meters near Streetvith, Belgium. The German crew reported the penetration as impossible before they abandoned their burning vehicle. On December 19th, the day after, Brenner's engagement, M18S from the 814th Tank Destroyer Battalion destroyed 3 Tigers from Heavy Panzer Battalion, 301, at ranges between 1,500 and 2,000 meters during fighting near Stavelot. German after-action reports described improved American armor-piercing ammunition of unknown type and recommended extreme caution in assuming safe engagement ranges. On December 22nd, during fighting near Bastogne, an M18 achieved a frontal penetration of a Panther at 2,200 meters, a range at which German doctrine assumed absolute invulnerability. The Panther commander survived and reported to his battalion intelligence officer that the Americans possess a new weapon that negates our armor advantage at all practical combat ranges. The pattern was clear, but German intelligence struggled to assess the scope of the problem. How many American units possessed this improved ammunition? Was it standard issue or limited distribution? Could German tactics adapt? The captured M93 HVAP rounds, recovered from several destroyed German vehicles in late December, finally reached German technical intelligence for analysis in early January 1945. The tungsten carbide cores explained the dramatically improved penetration. German metallurgists confirmed that this type of round could indeed penetrate Tiger and Panther frontal armor at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters under proper impact conditions. But by January 1945, the broader strategic situation rendered these tactical concerns almost irrelevant. The Ardennes offensive had failed. German forces were in general retreat. Fuel shortages, air attacks, and overwhelming Allied material superiority made tactical debates about ammunition performance secondary to basic survival. Klaus Brenner recovered from his leg wound and returned to duty in February 1945. Heavy Panzer Battalion 506 had been essentially destroyed during the Ardennes, fighting not primarily through combat, but through fuel exhaustion, mechanical breakdowns, and abandonment of immobilized vehicles. Brenner received a new command, a Panzer IV, not a Tiger. No Tigers were available. The battalion had lost 14 Tigers during the Ardennes offensive. 6 were destroyed by enemy fire. 8 were abandoned due to fuel exhaustion or mechanical failure. No replacements existed. Brenner commanded his Panzer IV through the final retreat across Germany, surviving until April 17, 1945, when his vehicle's engine failed permanently near Magdeburg. He and his crew destroyed the Panzer IV with hand grenades and surrendered to American forces the following day. During his interrogation as a prisoner of war, Brenner described his experience on December 18, 1944, the M18, that penetrated his Tiger at 2,000 meters. The American intelligence officer conducting the interrogation seemed unsurprised. HVAP ammunition, the American explained. High-velocity armor-piercing. Tungsten-core. We started fielding it in August. Limited numbers at first, but more common by December. Effective against heavy German armor at extended ranges. Why didn't you use it sooner? Brenner asked. The intelligence officer shrugged. Had to invent it first. Your Tigers and Panthers forced us to improve. That's how it works. You build better armor, we build better ammunition. You build heavier tanks, we build faster ones. Back and forth. Brenner thought about Tiger 214, about Dietrich's burning vehicle, about the 6 men who died because German doctrine assumed a safety range that no longer existed. You changed the rules without telling us. The American smiled without humor. That's generally the idea in war, Hauptmann. Post-war analysis revealed the full extent of the M93 HVAP rounds capability. Against Tiger I frontal armor, 100 mm face-hardened steel, the M93 could achieve penetration at ranges up to 2,400 meters. Under ideal conditions, perfect 90-degree impact, no intervening obstacles, properly manufactured round. At 2,000 meters, the range at which Brenner's Tiger was penetrated, the M93 had approximately 70% probability of penetration against Tiger frontal hull armor and 85% probability against Tiger frontal turret armor. This represented a fundamental shift in armored combat on the Western Front. German heavy tanks could no longer assume invulnerability at extended ranges. Every engagement became mutually lethal. The psychological advantage German crews had enjoyed evaporated, but the American advantage came with significant limitations. Tungsten scarcity meant HVAP ammunition remained in limited supply throughout the war. Even by March 1945, most tank destroyer units had only 20 to 30 HVAP rounds per vehicle, less than half their total ammunition load. Crews were instructed to conserve HVAP for heavy German armor. Against Panzer IVs or lighter vehicles, standard ammunition remained effective and more abundant. This created tactical complexity. Tank destroyer commanders had to identify targets accurately at range and decide whether to expend precious HVAP rounds or attempt engagement with standard ammunition. German forces never developed an equivalent weapon. Germany had access to tungsten from limited sources, but industrial capacity and raw material shortages prevented large-scale production of comparable ammunition. By late 1944, German industry struggled to produce basic armor-piercing rounds in adequate quantities, let alone advanced tungsten-core ammunition. The result was an asymmetric capability that favored American forces in the war's final months. German heavy tanks retained their armor and firepower advantages, but they could no longer dominate the engagement envelope. American tank destroyers, properly equipped and skillfully employed, could kill Tigers and Panthers at ranges where German doctrine assumed safety. Klaus Brenner survived the war and eventually returned to Germany in 1947 after 2 years as a prisoner. He never saw Tiger 214 again. Recovery teams attempted to salvage the vehicle in late December 1944, but abandoned it under American artillery fire. The Tiger was eventually recovered by American forces in March 1945 and shipped to Aberdeen Proving Ground for technical evaluation. The penetration hole, 5 inches in diameter at entry, irregular and larger at exit, fascinated American ordnance engineers. It represented physical proof that their improved ammunition worked as designed against the thickest armor Germany fielded. The Tiger was eventually scrapped in 1947, but photographs of the penetration appeared in numerous technical manuals and training documents. For Brenner, the memory of December 18, 1944, remained sharp decades later. He described it in a 1982 interview for a German military history journal. "We believed our armor made us untouchable at long range. That belief died in 1 second, at 2,000 meters, on a frozen hillside in France. The Tiger could still kill anything at any range, but so could the Americans. We were no longer invincible. That changes everything." The M18 commander who destroyed Brenner's Tiger and Dietrich's Tiger was never identified definitively. American after-action reports from that sector mentioned several successful engagements by M18s from the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion during December 18th, but specific crew identities weren't recorded for most engagements. Whoever that American tank destroyer commander was, he demonstrated the tactical revolution that HVAP ammunition represented. By achieving 2 frontal penetrations at extended range against the most feared tank on the Western Front, he proved that American tank destroyers could compete with German heavy armor on equal terms when properly equipped and skillfully employed. The Tiger remained a formidable weapon until Germany's surrender, but after December 1944, it was no longer invincible. The metallurgical revolution that created M93 HVAP ammunition ensured that German heavy tanks faced lethal threats at every range, from every direction. The era of Tiger supremacy had ended, not through superior Allied tanks, but through superior Allied chemistry. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.